Lewis Hamilton didn't hold back in Spain. After crossing the finish line in 6th place, the 7-time world champion called it the worst race I've ever experienced, balance-wise. That's not something you'd expect from one of Formula One's greatest drivers, especially in his debut season with Ferrari. But the Spanish Grand Prix left Hamilton frustrated, defeated, and questioning everything about the SF25. It wasn't just a bad race. It was a warning shot that something deeper might be broken inside Ferrari's 2024 campaign. The car was twitchy, the strategy was reactive, and the team looked lost. As Leclerc surged to a surprise podium, Hamilton was left going backwards, and not just in track position. This wasn't the kind of race that gets shrugged off. It raised real concerns about Ferrari's development, leadership, and Hamilton's future in red. Let's break down exactly what went wrong in Barcelona, and why it could change everything. Heading into the Spanish Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton had reasons to be hopeful. He had outqualified Charles Leclerc, securing 5th place on the starting grid, while his teammate lined up in 7th. It was a small but significant win in their internal rivalry. When the lights went out, Hamilton had one of his strongest starts of the season, immediately overtaking George Russell's Mercedes into turn 1. Leclerc followed him through in textbook fashion, and for a brief moment, Ferrari looked poised to mount a serious challenge at the front. But within a few laps, it became obvious that something was wrong. The McLaren of Lando Norris, running in 3rd, began pulling away with ease. Hamilton couldn't respond. He wasn't just losing time, he was visibly struggling to keep the car stable through corners, especially in the medium-speed turns that dominate the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. Behind him, Leclerc was growing restless, clearly faster and boxed in by his own teammate. By lap 9, the radio message came, swap positions. Ferrari made the call early, and Hamilton, without protest, moved aside. That moment marked a shift, not just in the race, but within the team dynamic. Leclerc, once the underdog in this pairing, was now leading the charge. Hamilton, meanwhile, began slipping further and further back. The fact that Ferrari prioritised Leclerc so early spoke volumes. They weren't holding out hope that Hamilton could recover. They saw where the pace was, and it wasn't in the number 44 car. What started as a promising launch quickly turned into a slow, painful unravelling of Hamilton's race and his standing inside the team. If getting overtaken by his teammate was a bitter pill to swallow, what followed was pure humiliation. As the laps ticked by, Hamilton's pace dropped off a cliff. The car refused to cooperate. Whether it was corner entry, throttle response, or straight line balance, nothing felt right. And then came the moment that no Ferrari fan could have imagined. Hamilton was passed by the Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg. That's not just rare, it's unacceptable by Ferrari's standards. Sauber has spent the better part of the season fighting at the back of the grid, often struggling to escape Q1, yet here they were, overtaking a Ferrari on pure race pace in the closing stages of a Grand Prix. It wasn't due to tyre degradation or a mechanical failure, it was just raw, painful performance disparity. Even though Hamilton would eventually be bumped up to 6th place after Max Verstappen received a 10-second penalty, that position came as a technicality. It did nothing to soften the blow. The real sting was in being outclassed by drivers in machinery that should have been nowhere near a Ferrari. That single moment, the red car being passed by a midfield backmarker, was symbolic of how far things had fallen. For Hamilton, it was a public embarrassment. For Ferrari, it was an indictment of their development, their setup choices, and their overall direction. And it left everyone wondering, if the car is really this far off pace, what hope is there for a recovery this season? As Hamilton crossed the line, and the team began debriefing, it was clear that this wasn't just a rough day, it was a disaster. The frustration couldn't be contained. Over the team radio, Hamilton delivered a message that stunned even his closest engineers. "I believe we've got something wrong with this car, mate. It's the worst it's ever been." That wasn't a heated outburst, it was pure resignation. This is a driver who's piloted some of the most dominant machinery in F1 history, and who has battled through tough weekends before. But this was different. The SF25 didn't just lack pace, it felt fundamentally flawed. The rear end was unpredictable, the balance was off, and the handling seemed to deteriorate over the course of the race rather than improve. The message wasn't about a single mistake or setup issue. It was a declaration that the car, in its current form, wasn't fit to race. And Hamilton wasn't speaking in anger, he was speaking from exhaustion. The language he used was important. It wasn't, "we had a bad day," it was, "this is the worst it's ever been." That kind of statement has ripple effects. It affects morale, it affects the team's confidence, and most importantly, it puts pressure on the engineers and strategists to explain how things went so wrong. When a driver like Hamilton says the car feels undrivable, people listen. And in this case, Ferrari had no immediate answers. After the race, Hamilton didn't rush to the paddock or dive into post-race interviews with his usual energy. Instead, he moved through the press pen like a shadow, quiet, detached, and visibly upset. When asked what went wrong with the car, His answer was as raw as it was revealing. I have no idea why it was so bad. There was no technical breakdown, no defensive language, just honest confusion. When reporters followed up, asking if there was anything positive to take away, he said zero. Not even a half-hearted comment about tyre strategy or a good first stint. Just zero. And when the media pushed again, hoping to hear about Canada or possible fixes, Hamilton responded with a single word: home. That reply said more than any analysis ever could. He wasn't just talking about travel plans. He was saying he needed to regroup, reset, and walk away from the disaster in Spain. The mental toll was heavy. This isn't just about a tough race weekend. It's about a driver who's losing faith in the car, in the team, and possibly even in the decision to join Ferrari. When Sky Sports' Rachel Brooks offered hope by saying she trusted Ferrari to figure it out, Hamilton replied, "I'm sure they won't. It's probably just me." That line was chilling. It wasn't self-pity, it was isolation. Hamilton felt alone in this battle, and that's the most dangerous mindset for a driver to slip into, because when confidence fades, performance follows. And right now, Hamilton's confidence in Ferrari is on the brink of collapse. So what exactly is plaguing Ferrari's SF25? According to reports from inside the team, the issue begins and ends with the car's unpredictable rear end. On paper, the SF25 should be a contender. It's an evolution of last year's strong base, and it's packed with upgrades. But something in the suspension geometry or aero balance isn't clicking, especially with Hamilton's driving style. While Leclerc seems to find ways to work around the instability, Hamilton is caught out again and again, particularly in high-speed transitions and corner exits. The team has acknowledged the problem and planned a series of upgrades to resolve it. These changes were initially targeted for the Canadian Grand Prix, but due to delays in manufacturing and simulations, they'll likely debut in Austria instead. The planned package includes new rear suspension components and floor adjustments aimed at reducing oversteer and improving stability. But there's another layer to this issue: setup philosophy. Ferrari may be designing the car around Leclerc's feedback, unintentionally sidelining Hamilton's preferences. That could explain why the two drivers are diverging so dramatically in performance despite running similar base setups. It's not a question of raw speed, it's about trust in the car. If Hamilton doesn't feel connected to the rear axle, he can't attack corners or defend positions. And that leads to conservative driving, lost lap time, and the kind of radio messages we heard in Spain. Until Ferrari aligns its car development with both drivers' styles, this imbalance will persist, and it could derail their entire campaign. While Hamilton was stuck battling Sauber's, Charles Leclerc was stealing the spotlight. After the early position swap, Leclerc made the most of the opportunity, pushing the SF25 to its absolute limit. His pace was consistent, his tyre management was precise, and his overtaking was aggressive but controlled. It wasn't just a good drive, it was a statement. Leclerc isn't here to play second fiddle. He wants to lead this team. And based on recent performances, he's earning that right. Ferrari didn't hesitate to back him in Barcelona, and their faith paid off. Leclerc climbed the order and secured a surprise podium, something Hamilton never came close to matching. Internally, that shift is significant. At the start of the season, Hamilton's arrival was the headline, the team's new era. But 6 races in, the narrative is changing. Leclerc is outscoring him, outqualifying him, and outpacing him. That changes how engineers prioritize development. It changes how strategy is written, and it changes how leadership is distributed inside the garage. Leclerc's performance in Spain didn't just earn him a trophy, it earned him influence. Meanwhile, Hamilton is left trying to find answers. There's no longer a guarantee that he'll be treated as the team's number one. That kind of uncertainty can be corrosive, especially for a driver who thrives on structure and trust. The longer Leclerc keeps outperforming him, the more pressure Hamilton will feel, not just from the media but from within his own team. And that could shape everything that happens from here on out. All eyes now turn to Montreal, a track where Hamilton has made history in the past. He's won at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve 7 times, more than any other driver on the grid. But this year, he arrives not as a favourite, but as a question mark. Ferrari had initially planned to roll out key upgrades for the Canadian Grand Prix, hoping to fix the balance issues that have plagued Hamilton all season. But delays may push those changes to Austria. If that happens, Canada becomes a wild card. The track's long straights and heavy braking zones might suit the SF25 better than Spain's tight corners, but nothing is guaranteed. Meanwhile, the competition is surging. Red Bull remains the benchmark, McLaren is rapidly catching up, and even Mercedes is starting to find rhythm. Ferrari can't afford another off weekend. For Hamilton, this isn't just about scoring points, it's about proving he still belongs at the top. A solid performance in Canada could reset the narrative, restore some internal confidence, and give the team a baseline to build on. But another poor showing could widen the rift between Hamilton and Ferrari's technical team. And the longer it takes to find consistency, the harder it becomes to mount a real championship push. The Canadian Grand Prix may not determine the title, but it could determine something just as important: momentum. And right now, Hamilton desperately needs some. Lewis Hamilton's weekend in Spain wasn't just disappointing, it was revealing. It exposed the cracks forming beneath the surface of Ferrari's 2024 campaign. A driver of Hamilton's caliber doesn't label a race the worst unless something is deeply wrong. From a poor balance to strategy decisions that favoured his teammate, the Spanish Grand Prix highlighted a team in flux and a driver running out of patience. Ferrari needs answers, fast. The SF25 must evolve, the setup must adapt, and trust must be rebuilt before internal frustration turns into public collapse. For now, the paddock is watching. Every race moving forward is a test, not just of Hamilton's performance, but of Ferrari's ability to support him. If they can't deliver a car he can fight with, questions will start to grow louder. Was this move the right one? Can Ferrari really deliver a championship? And how long will Hamilton wait before looking elsewhere? The road ahead won't be easy. But with two world-class drivers, two very different driving styles, and a team with everything to prove, the next few races will tell us everything we need to know. One thing's certain: after Spain, nothing at Ferrari can be taken for granted again.